Started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and now...
That's right. We are live.
The ghost faced himself, Brandon Tanev.
This isn't like the start of last season when it looked like the Canucks were just a beer league team not playing defense at all. And just before Chris goes, no, I'm kidding, Chris, you can actually go now.
no, hold on.
We had to give more time for coming on late. So.
I still had, hold on. All right. Chris go, and then I got something else to say at the end.
So, an elf and a midget in 2 back-to-back games. He's definitely on a friendship tour for sure.
Saying, oh yeah, I'm okay with him being, the 6'7" defenseman. No! He is a AHL defenseman right now.
Look, Shonky, don't mind Devin, okay? We all struggle with Devin, so you know.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks. We're live there right now. Facebook.com, Shifts and Pucks. We're live there right now. YouTube.com, Shifts and Pucks. Live there right now. Twitch.com, Shifts and Pucks. Live there right now. You can subscribe wherever you get your audio, as well as on the Area 51 Sports Network, as it is Christmas Eve in Hockey Land. We are 1 day away from the start of the National Hockey League playoffs. At long last, 4 games tomorrow. We've got Tampa playing Toronto. We've got Boston playing Carolina, St. Louis, Minnesota. And Dan, what Matt DeBoer is calling the lottery pick playoff. The Los Angeles Kings are taking on the Edmonton Oilers. Maybe we'll touch on that a little bit later. And then we've got on Tuesday, we've got the Pittsburgh Penguins taking on the New York Rangers. We've got the Washington Capitals taking on the Florida Panthers. And we also have Nashville. Well, actually, let's go. This is the way to start. It was 4-0 Nashville after the first period. We were all prepared as we went to bed to get ourselves ready for a Nashville Predator Calgary Flame first round playoff matchup. But the Arizona Coyotes, honoring their great legends of their past in the final game at Gila River Arena, legends like Pavel Datsyuk, Chris Pronger, all of those that saved them from any cap penalties and cap ceilings, they dedicated the rest of that night to them and came back and won 5-4. So now the Calgary Flames face the Dallas Stars and the Nashville Predators face the Colorado Avalanche. So for the first time since April 19th, 2019, Friday, April 19th, 2019, there will be a playoff game in Calgary, Flames and Dallas. Well, first we'll say hello to Dan from Fireside Chat in his Fireside uniform. What's going on? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you guys all doing? It's good to be here.
Good to have you. Devin, hello.
Hey, Kev. Hey, Dan. Good to have you on, man. It's been a while.
And Sean, hello.
Hello, Kevin.
Okay, Sean, you're wearing the hat. Tell us about the hat before I keep forgetting to credit the music.
Yeah, we haven't done a good job at crediting our theme song. Lodgepole Kind, the artist. Go check him out on Spotify, on YouTube Music, anywhere you get you stream your music. He's there. He did the mashup for us for our intro, and he's pretty awesome.
Yes, and by the way, you know who's a big fan of the music is Pat Steinberg. Steinberg was a huge fan. He said it was the best thing about our podcast. Anyway.
And then you start talking and Steinberg turns it off.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as I open my mouth, Steinberg's out. Yeah. But I guess how are we feeling about the Dallas Stars? I guess after Tuesday, I think we were all rubbing our hands and hoping for a 7-game series against the Nashville Predators after that war. And then you had the UC Saros injury and the opportunity to play David Riddick in the playoffs. But it's the Dallas Stars. How are we feeling?
I feel great. That's definitely the matchup I was hoping for the Flames. It would have been too much of a nail biter for me playing the Preds, I think. That is if they had UC Saros. It sounds like UC is down with a high ankle sprain for those. You never know how long those type of injuries take to recover from. So especially for a goalie. So getting Jake Ottinger or Scott Wedgwood and the Dallas Stars, I think is a better matchup for the Calgary Flames. They do have a lot of firepower. That top line of Rupe Hintz, Joe Pavelski, and Jason Robertson is definitely the matchup that you'll see Michael Backlund and company be up against. So that's basically the only thing I'm really nervous about. We know that Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin can turn it on, but they haven't in the past 2 years. So I'm not too worried about them, but it's definitely looking down at the matchup. I'm happy to see the Dallas Stars.
I think if you look for the Flames to go deep this year, the Dallas Stars are the better first round matchup because they're going to be less physically demanding on the Flames. I think that the Nashville Predators would have taken a lot more out of the Flames, and that might shorten their playoff run. But I think the Dallas Stars are the better first round team for a Flames group that I think thinks they can go at least to the third round, if not fourth this year.
I think that at least up front, Dallas has a little more Nashville has a little more physicality than the Stars do. But I wouldn't say that. I think on the blue line, Dallas is a little more physical. They've got Esa Lindell. They've got Heiskanen's an underrated physical defenseman. Up front, they've got Faxa, who's not going to back down. Yanni Hakanpää is a big guy. So, and Ben and Seguin, while not at the top of their game, we're still putting up. Seguin still had 24 goals this season, and Ben had 46 points. If they can, but just step up a little bit, it's going to be a lot for the Flames to handle. But I think it all comes down to how they can control that Pavelski, Robertson, Hintz line. If they can control that line, the series could be very short.
Well, they accounted for 40.
And Sean, I agree with what you're saying about. Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
The Hintz, Robertson, Pavelski line accounted for 46.6% of their offense this year. So, go ahead, Dan. Where were you going to go? Because I was going to disagree with Devin on something, but go ahead, Dan.
Devin, I'm going to agree with you that I think that Dallas has a heavier team or a harder hitting team than Nashville. I definitely think that, but I think that they're a less fast moving team. I think with Nashville, part of the issue is having to worry about a lot of streaking forwards coming past your defense. So I think Calgary's going to have to work less in. Yeah, there's going to be bigger hits, but I think there's going to be an easier set of forwards to contain to the boards, to keep out of the high danger areas. And as Kevin said, with one line being almost 50% of the offense, I think Calgary has the better 4 forward lines that I think if you can contain that one line, even if Calgary's top line gets contained by a defensive pair, I just think that Calgary has the deeper roster of the two teams.
Definitely. They definitely do with having, they've got arguably the best line in the NHL this season. As well as you've got Mangiapane who can step up. Dylan Dubé stepped up of late, and they've got speed as well. That I don't think Dallas has. I think you are right there, Dan. I think Dallas is a much slower team than Nashville.
Where I was going to disagree with Devin is I wonder if we see number one line versus number one line. I wonder if this matchup is as Hintz, Robertson, Pavelski versus the Lindholm, Gaudreau, Tkachuk line. And then you kind of put the Backlund line against Seguin. Go one first line versus first line. I don't know, like that to me. It's always fascinating how you defend the other team's number one line when you have the home ice advantage. But I wonder, because Lindholm has been carrying heavy minutes. Lindholm, if you watch the awards, I think Lindholm should be the Selke winner. That's my own personal preference there. That's my personal opinion. I wonder if we see the Hintz, Pavelski, Robertson line versus Lindholm, Tkachuk, and Gaudreau.
Is that more
Kevin,
so
I think
for?
That's more admin. Oh, go ahead.
To that, I think that's more. Yeah, I'm probably going to say the exact same thing here, Dan. Is that it's more advantageous for Dallas in that aspect than it is Calgary Flames. But I don't think that you have to really be too concerned about who the Hintz Robertson line, because either way, like you said, you have Lindholm, who should be up for the Selke, and I think that top line in Calgary is way underrated for how well they do defensively, because you do have very responsible players, and Johnny Gaudreau is his 200-foot game, his 3-zone play is a lot better than it has been in the past. Well, it is in his entire career, and that's thankfully for Daryl Sutter and how he's really kind of formed his game this year. And I don't know if that's really advantageous for Dallas as much as you might think.
Has anyone told Jim Matheson that yet, or I'm just curious?
Go for it, Dan.
I was going to say the same thing. I think that you will see different line utilization based on where the game's being played. I think Calgary's going to want different matchups when they get last change than Dallas is going to want. So I think who's playing against who is really going to depend if we're playing the game in Calgary or in Dallas. And I think Calgary's going to try and keep the top line away from Dallas's top line, where, like you said, I think Dallas might want to match those two up. So I think we're going to see very different utilizations in games 1 and 2 versus 3 and 4.
Yeah, I think it'd be better for the Flames to match up that top line, try and match up that top line against the Sega and Ben Gurianov line. I think that sets up better for them, and then you can have the Backlund line up against that the Hintz, Robertson, Pavelski line. I think that works better for the Flames, because I think it would open up more opportunity for that top line to be dominant offensively, as opposed to being just battling back and forth. And also with Dallas too, I do wonder if Rick Bowness goes a little bit old school and tries a bit of a third line shutdown line versus that top line with Glendening, Faxa, and Kiravanta.
Well, that could be the case. I think that the pivotal point within this series, that, say for instance, the first two lines are a wash. The second line, probably, like I would say that you would favor Calgary's second line to Dallas's second line. It's that third line, like we talked about on the last podcast, and that has been very, very good. And they're good defensively. Kali Jonkrook is a great, more defensive forward than an offensive forward. Blake Coleman can put up points, and Dylan Dubé has been on a hell of a tear. So if we're looking at down the list on both sides, I'd say the third line in Calgary has a massive upper hand in comparison to Dallas's.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, yeah. You got Joel right now. You've got Joel Kiviranta, whose total points was 7 on that left wing. So yeah, that third line is definitely a strength for like as Dan said, that just all 4 lines. I think once you get past the top 2 lines of Dallas and even the top line, it's Calgary's got the matchups.
And even thinking about this a little bit more as well, is that I think Sutter's just going to roll his lines the first game. I don't think he's going to have to match up anything. I think he's just going to roll his lines and trust to see, okay, what kind of matchups is Rick Bowness trying to get out there? I know it's hard on the last change, but he has full trust with it. Even on that fourth line, with he'll have Lewis with Lucic and Richie, or insert player here kind of thing that's going to be rolling through, and he'll trust that lineup with even playing against that top line.
Well, yeah, I was just trying to think, because I don't think the Flames did a lot of matchups this year. The only one that I specifically can remember is it felt like they were throwing Lindholm against Draisaitl, maybe that one, but I don't recall a significant amount of like this year of like we need to match up against this lines. And
that's not a very Daryl Sutter.
No, I don't like that even for a team with a home ice advantage. I agree with you, Devin. Just roll the 4 lines and don't worry so much about trying to defend the team. You've got a really good team defense. You expect anyone out to be out there to shut them down.
I think it's not necessarily defending against the opposition. It's trying to find a way to exploit the some lines there more than anything else. That was what Daryl does. But the other big thing when I remember big talking point was when he put Trevor Lewis in the top 6 against the Oilers, and that was to split up and then have 2 lines that he could go up against the McDavid line and the Draisaitl line. And he's not against it. It'll be a very soft match. It won't be like Travis Green or old school hockey guy where you do have a full on hard match, which I think you'll see out of you'll see out of Dallas. But I don't necessarily think it's going to be a hard match strategy for Daryl Sutter and the Flames.
And we've seen Daryl move these players around a lot, especially as forwards during the season. So I think, we might go with what we're calling the traditional 4 lines now, but as the game calls for it, you'll move a guy up, a guy down. I could even see Daryl switching his bottom 6 or bottom 9 just to give Dallas a different look between games. Like, I think Calgary has a lot more flexibility there to put guys in the right spot. If you need somebody heavy, like Sean was saying, in the top 6, maybe you move Lucic up. But I think there's a lot more possibilities for the Flames to build the lines they need because they have the pieces.
And even we're talking about forward matchups. I think defensive as far as what forward group is going to be out there against which defensive group. Esa Lindell is going to be a fucking bastard to play against. He's a hard-nosed player, and he's borderline dirty. So he's built for playoff hockey, and you kind of want to make sure that if that defensive pair is out, that you want to stay away from that top matchup, I think, and then you put out probably the Lucic line or even that Coleman Yarncroke line.
Yeah, that right now Lindell is paired with Thomas Harley, but I wouldn't be surprised if they end up maybe putting together like a Lindell Suter line pair as a hard matchup. Even a Suter Heiskanen pair is a tough matchup for any line in the NHL these days. So I think the Bowness will try and play chess, and Daryl will just rodeo, because that's what he does.
He'll flip the board over.
And I think that you might almost get Dallas losing focus because Bowness is trying to play too much chess. And I think it might get to the point where he's trying to move too many pieces that they don't know what's going on for part of the game, and Calgary's getting the better of them.
And who's going to be starting in goal? Right? Because Wedgwood and Ottinger have very similar numbers right now. And it's probably going to be Ottinger, but Wedgwood's played pretty damn well. I
think Ottinger's the more experienced goaltender within their organization. You got to go with Ottinger.
Yeah, I think he is the future there. They brought in Wedgwood as just there's a emergency valve than anything else, because they've had no luck with injuries with their goaltenders this year.
Holtby out, Khudobin out. Now, if Ottinger's out, I think Dallas is in trouble. But yeah, I think Ottinger's their guy.
Wedgwood's played pretty well when he's played. He's been pretty good, but can he win a series? Would I put him? Would I give him the edge over Markstrom? No, I wouldn't give the Ottinger the edge either, though. So I think that the Flames have the more consistent goaltending. I think here Ottinger has been good, but he hasn't been consistent. The one wild card I do think for Dallas is if John Klingberg comes back. He's listed here day to day. That could be an interesting one on defense forward wise, I would give a pretty strong edge to the Flames. Defense wise, I would give I don't know if I would give a strong edge to the Flames, but I would give the edge to the Flames.
If Dallas has a healthy Klingberg, I think it's a soft, but without that, then I give the edge to the Flames.
I'd say the Flames have it, no matter if Klingberg's back or not. Just them as a collective whole, they outweigh the collective whole out in Dallas.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Calgary's 6 are better than Dallas's 6.
The one thing I do think is just in terms of Heiskanen, he hasn't had that great of a year, but he's had mononucleosis, and if he's healthier, presents a huge challenge. I mean, he hasn't. he hasn't been healthy this year, but if at his top rate, he's still a great defenseman that I'm a big fan of. I mean, so that's the one thing there that I think on that. Just I guess maybe like we kind of broke down the matchup here, but I wanted to kind of just go back a little bit, and I just was thinking about this. I think both of our podcasts, we were sort of speculating how the Flames would deploy their lines and who would play and who would not play the final week of the season. And we sort of were wondering, especially the Winnipeg game, we were expecting some rests for some players and we didn't get it. I have my own theory, but maybe do you guys have a theory of what happened there or what your thoughts were on that? They ended up playing Lindholm. They ended up playing Tanev. They ended up playing Tkachuk. The only one that got the rest was Markstrom, and Vladar is basically the last couple of weeks here. It's been the Dan Vladar show, and Markstrom has gotten his rest, but he didn't rest really anybody. Sutter didn't rest anybody else.
I think it was more so just he probably went around the room and asked, "Do you need rest? How you feeling?" Get everybody's pulse and seeing exactly what they want to do, what they think is best for their own game. I don't think it was necessarily a thought process for Sutter to say, "Hey, no, you're sitting. I'm saying you're sitting and you're sitting." It really comes down to the player's own feel towards whether or not they think it would be beneficial for them to sit.
I think sitting and resting players. Go for it, Dan.
If you listen to the players that were here during that Colorado series, the last time the Flames won the West, and a lot of them will say the reason they lost that series was they took their feet off the gas. So I think a lot of those guys saying, let's not sit. Let's not get out of the rhythm. Let's stay doing this. Let's stay playing, and then we're going to be ready for the playoffs. And I think that's almost the lesson that's been learned by some of these guys who were here before, saying, this is the best team we've had since then. We don't want to screw it up again.
And I think sitting and resting players is overrated and completely over talked about. Rhythm and making sure that you're feeling good about your game is more important. We've seen teams that have run away with President's trophies and division titles throughout the year struggle in the first round because, as Dan said, they let the foot off the gas. And from everything I've got from Daryl this year, it's been all about building and building and building and making sure that they aren't satisfied with anything. So resting at Markstrom goalies are different because they play so much. Because they're on the ice for almost every minute of every game. They have to be mentally focused for basically the whole time. You can't let up. So you have to be able to give them a rest. And it's a completely different physical style of everything with goaltending as opposed to skaters out on the ice too. So you put them aside, but as for skaters, I think it's overrated, and it's all more about making sure that you're in the rhythm and you're ready to go for playoffs. If you're fighting a bit of an injury, that's different. But if you're healthy, there's no reason to sit someone, in my opinion.
And Sean, I think especially this year, if you look at the Flames schedule since Christmas, they played a lot at home. They haven't been on the road a lot. Like these guys sleeping in their own beds most nights. I think that of all seasons, this might be the one where you say, yeah, we maybe don't need to rest those guys. They're getting their facilities, their beds, all the comforts of home. So maybe we can push them a little bit further.
Yeah, that's fair. I didn't think that Winnipeg game was all that important. That they would have been nice, maybe to rest them for that one. But at the same time, I could see why you're playing. You want to get in a rhythm and you want to feel good heading into the playoffs. And
Kevin, you also got to look at the logistics of resting. We have, I believe, 2 call-ups left. So if you rest guys, you've got 2 players we could have called up for that. Who are you going to rest? Who are you going to take out? Like, it's not like you can just pull up the whole AHL team. There are limits to that after the the trade deadline. So I think resting guys, I mean, who do you put in instead? We really don't have extra forwards. You're going to put Michael Stone in forward. Like there's some logistical issues there sometimes with resting players because who's going to go in their spot?
Yeah, that's
and
fair.
Even then, look at what happened with Florida. They rested basically their whole top six, it looked like, and they got absolutely rolled by the lowly Canadians. And does that make them feel good about going into the playoffs? Probably not.
Yeah.
You want to be able to feel good about where you're at going into the playoffs. It's much better to play the players and as opposed to resting them and for whatever reason, unless they're fighting an injury, there's no reason to rest them.
Yeah. And the Flames don't even have $750,000 against the cap right now. So even if you call a guy up, you're still got to be cap compliant till the end of the season. So we would have had to have somebody injured so we can make an emergency call up. But guys, think right now when you have that discussion, it's a great discussion as fans. But when we look at the logistics of taking somebody a lineup, it really didn't work for the Flames right now.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I see both sides of that argument. I think it's always the fear of injuries and all of that sort of stuff. But I can also see, and I mean, it's an interesting transition here to look back, even 2000, even the bubble, like just kind of, I think that there's an easy answer to this, but I also think that there's a deeper answer to this. The difference between coming into this playoff as opposed to the Colorado playoff, where I think everyone was expecting a pretty quick 5-game series. I remember there was a lot of laughter. Oh, they're going to have to bring in some guy named Cale Makar to play defense. And how's this raw rookie going to do in the playoffs? Oh, okay. And the Flames got rolled. Aside from the obvious, which is Daryl Sutter, Dan, I'm really curious from your perspective, what are you seeing as the big differences from April 19th, 2019 to May 3rd, 2022?
Taking Daryl out, because you already mentioned Daryl there, I think there's two big things for me. One is experience. And if you look at the way the Flames have built their bottom six, let's call it, or the middle six, they've normally brought in, Josh Levo and sort of extra players. This year they were going for guys with experience, even Trevor Lewis, right? Playoff experience. Coleman, Stanley Cup experience. So I think one big thing is they brought in experience. They brought in those wise sages who can say, this is what we need, this is how it works. I think another big thing, Kevin, is just experience in general. I mean, like you said, we have a good amount of this core that was here during that Colorado series and said, whoa, we know now we underestimated them. And they've said it publicly. They underestimated that. They took their foot off the gas. We can't do that again. So I think there's a lot of learning lessons and a lot of still bad taste in this dressing room that they know what needs to be done differently. And I think if you look at that roster, it's very much a bunch of younger players who were, making it on their way. And I've always used the phrase in our show, the blind can't lead the blind. And I feel like now the Flames have a roster built of veterans because they're ready to go deep. And I think that's the big change there.
Yeah, I think that you got to really, this is a massive offseason playoffs for Johnny and Matthew. Both those players need to be show everybody that they're playoff performers. They have not shown that in the past. And it needs to be led by that crew. It has to. And you really hope so. And then you can say, okay, you have the Lewis, like the Trevor Lewis's of the world, Leon Lucic, Tyler Toffoli, who have been there, who have done it. And they can back up the message there as well. So, if I'm looking at it in that kind of perspective, is that there has to be a fire under those two players' asses, and really hope that Lindholm doesn't fade away either, because he definitely faded away in the last time.
I think another thing here is it feels to me more like this team believes that this is their year as opposed to that one. I mean, they went out and they got Toffoli, they got Yarncroke. They didn't spend those kind of assets last time around, and it feels like everyone from management to the Zamboni drivers buying in that this is our year. And I think when that's happening mentally, it's going to put the guys in a different frame of mind as well.
Since that Colorado series, they added 4 players who have gone deep and won it all. in Toffoli, Coleman, Lucic, and Lewis. You also have Kelly Yarncroc, who went to the Cup final. Tanev played was part of the Canucks team in 2011. He was a rookie, but him and Markstrom also went toe to toe with Vegas in the second round in the bubble. So I think they've added players, as well as what you've all said in terms of that added extra experience that the rest of the younger players have had because of 2019, because of the bubble, and seeing what has happened. So I think that's why it feels different this year. It doesn't. When we went into 2019, it was I remember saying that, like, don't over, like, yes, you won the division, you're looking good, but don't over, like, you've got Colorado with McKinnon and Rantanen and all that, and they stepped up while the Flames top players really didn't. And I think you're going to see a bit of a different approach to that this year. And I think one of the reasons Lindholm maybe faded away in the playoffs a lot was that he was relied on too much as a matchup player. And I think that's why we won't see Daryl play too hard into the matchups. Let the top players be top players and dictate the play, as opposed to just saying go out and check this other line.
To build on the Matthew-Johnny conversation, just specifically with Matthew and Dan, I'm curious your thoughts, because we had a debate about this on Wednesday, what Matthew's antics in the Nashville game. Did he cross a line? Because I feel for most of this year, I think Matthew's been rather quiet. Matthew's been... I said that Matthew Tkachuk has become a professional hockey player. Like yes, he can still get under your skin, but it's not the same as before, where he sometimes, I think at times, threaded and crossed the line and caused harm to the team more than good. Where are you with Matthew? Like, were you fine with what happened in Nashville? Do we need to see Matthew stirring the pot, or what are your thoughts there?
I think if you're looking at Matthew Tkachuk as one of your top guys, he can't be the Matthew we've seen before. He can't be crossing that line. He can't be your big sandpaper guy. You're going to get him hurt. You're going to get him injured.
Oh, he froze.
It's too risky. And I think the Matthew Tkachuk we're seeing now, and I like the word you use, Kevin, becoming a professional, but I think he's finding his place. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yep.
I was just saying, I think that Matthew, he can't be the Matthew of old if you're going to be paying this guy $7 million plus to be on your top line. I think that, if he's a middle six guy, great, he can do some of that, but I think you can't get this guy hurt. You can't get this guy, in the line of fire the way he used to be. And I think he's becoming what he needs to be a complete top line player. And I think Daryl's helping him with that. Even as he needs to be more offensive, he needs to be a more responsible player. He needs to know when to mix it up. But if you just want him going out there gooning it up every night, you can't pay that guy $10 million, because he's not going to be around long. He's going to get hurt. He's going to be in the box too much. Like, I think we're seeing Matthew becoming a more complete player, and I think Daryl's helping him say, Matthew, there's more to your game than this. And I think a lot of times guys play the game they were told to play. Hey, this was what got me to the dance. I'm going to keep doing it. And I think Daryl's saying, you're out there with Lindholm, you're out there with Johnny. You know what? Let's have you play a more complete role and know when to do some of that stuff that makes you who you are, just like his dad would. But go out there and be an offensive player. And I just think that it's Johnny maturing and figuring out who he is, not necessarily what I think some old coaches did, which was, you go out and be you. And I think they're saying, let's put him into a role and, stick him into the team where we need him. And I just think it's a maturing piece for Matthew.
So was that too much, do you think, Dan, what Matthew did against Nashville?
No, I don't. I think if it's against Winnipeg, it might have been too much. But I think going into a playoff series, I think Matthew was making a mark that, we're going to take over here and we're going to assert some physical dominance. So I think time and place, I think it was okay.
My argument was, I think it was right on the edge. And I think Daryl was happy that it happened then. Because he can say, as you said, pull him aside, say, look, you're right on the edge here. Any bit farther, and it's too much.
Yeah.
As opposed to, but you need to stick to being what has been made you successful this season. And all your talk about him becoming like a more mature player and evolving as a player, that's what the best players do.
Mm-hmm.
They don't just say, well, I'm skilled enough to make this work, and if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. They have to constantly change and evolve to become better and learn from what is successful by other players in the NHL and adapt it to there. And I am seeing that from Tkachuk this year. I'm seeing that from Lindholm as well.
It also has to do with where is the game at? Are you down by one? Are you up by one? Up by two? What like is second or third period? What does the team need? It's not so much an individual mindset. And Daryl's been preaching this the entire year that individual shit doesn't matter. It's all about the team and whether or not. I think it was perfect. I honestly think that's a perfect example of what Tkachuk needs to do at that time in a game, and that was. Yeah, I think it was just overall a perfection game from Tkachuk giving everything that he has within his arsenal.
Yeah, I agree with you, Devin. I think it's time and place. And if that would have happened in the Winnipeg game, we might have had a different discussion. But time and place, I think it was okay. And we see that from Lucic too, right? Time and place is big for Lucic's game.
Well, speaking of Lucic, I think that's the other thing that I think is one big difference here is there were times that Matthew, I think, had to feel like he had to do something to get this team going, where when the team has been struggling this year, Daryl's threw out the Lucic, Lewis, and insert center here line to create some energy, put some pressure on, not necessarily goon it up, but be physical enough to be able to put another line out in an offensive faceoff situation where they didn't have that before. They didn't have that fourth line that could go out and do what the Lucic Lewis insert center here line has been able to do, that fourth line.
Well, and Kevin, I think what you mentioned there of getting the team going is important too. This has been a good team this year. We couldn't say the same. They were not as good the last couple of years. And I think there's been less need to go out there and just stir things up to get your guys going. So I think that, some of these players like Tkachuk can focus on a different part of their game because of that.
And like Lucic, I believe only played about 10, 11 minutes in that Nashville game, but you saw him every single shift. And that's exactly what you need from him in the playoffs, is to be noticed in that way and making those big impacts in that little of a time.
Yep. What is your concern with the Flames? Like, if there's something that you're a little worried about with the Flames heading into the playoffs, what is it?
Outside of Tkachuk and Gaudreau, or I guess that top line just fading away like we talked about earlier, I would say it would be Dubé. Having that third line of Dubé, Yarncroke, and Coleman fade away as well. That's number one for me, and number two would be the defense not playing as a collective whole, and that's what's made them successful. But all it takes is one of those players to not play the way they have been playing, and I think the big wild card is potentially Nikita Zadorov. He needs to stay out of the box. They need to. They're both Calgary and Dallas. Their power plays are very, very close to being similar. And if you're looking at the PK, Calgary has a higher PK percentage than Dallas does. But you got to make sure that if you are taking penalties, that you're not putting yourself in a bad position for the ref to make that call. And I think Zadorov is definitely up there for me. And yeah, just at defense as a whole, if they're not playing as one, then I think we definitely need to be a little bit worried.
Yeah, and Sean.
I'll give you mine. I think that the thing that a lot of people haven't thought of this year is Calgary's been very fortunate with the injury bug. We've managed to keep it away. And one of my big worries is the injury bug bites his team in the playoffs. We've got a lot of depth, but we don't have a lot of guys that are deep outside of our of our current depth chart. I mean, if you're taking a forward out and having to insert Adam Ruzicka as a top 6, I'm not sure we're that strong. So to me, I think that the downside for the Flames here could be if somebody gets hurt and they, they haven't seen that adversity yet. We haven't had anyone in our top 9 really hurt this year to, for any length of time to know what we do without them. So that to me is my worry. And especially with a physical team like Dallas, I think it's more possible that we're going to have that issue.
For me, I think I look at it as, have they faced enough adversity in the regular season? I don't know if we've seen how if they're able to bounce back for a slow start. Say if they lose game 1 and then they're down in game 2, what happens there? But they have to get there first for that to be even a question. So that would be a big one for me, is once they hit they're down in a series, how do they react? Because they've been so high confidence all season. What happens if and when that happens?
I guess that's so. On one hand, I'm looking like just watching the WHL playoffs. I'm watching that happen with Everett. They had everything go their way, and then last night they lost 2 more players, 2 big players, and now they're in trouble in that series against an 8 seed. But I also, on the other hand of that, I look at the way Daryl and this team has approached it. I don't worry if they're down game 1. I think that they're calm enough that they won't panic when they're down 1 game.
And I know what Sean's saying about the adversity, but I also think that goes back to what we're talking about veterans on this roster. And while they may not have had the adversity this year, all these guys have faced that adversity in the past. And I think that, maybe not this year, you can draw on that adversity, whether it was the Flames against Colorado, whether it was, something Coleman's done, whether it's the LA guys that came with Daryl. I think that this roster as a whole has faced enough playoff adversity that you can dig deep and know how to get out of that.
Totally agree. That experience is massive, and I don't see that being too much of an issue. I definitely understand where Sean's comment is coming from, but even then, I think they've had adversity within the regular season, and they have bounced back pretty well. And especially if the game gets out of hand a little bit, as far as the Dallas for some reason is running up the score, you're going to have those Lucic, Lewis types going to be running amok, and you're going to have Tkachuk showing his baring his teeth and showing his grittiness than more so than his skill, and sending that message that next game or whatever next shift, even that Dallas isn't going to be able to do what they're doing that's going to make them successful.
My concern. I have 2 small. I have one that's smaller, but I'll start with my bigger one. It's the Backlund, Mangiapane, Toffoli line. I'm been a bit concerned with Toffoli. It's interesting that they gave him the day off of practice yesterday because he hasn't looked 100%. Backlund's going to be an interesting case in the off season. Maybe we'll leave that conversation for another time, And I'm going to be a little bit unpopular with my Mangiapane take. I think he's been inconsistent this year. There's been, okay, sure. He got 30, close to 40 goals. I don't think Daryl's been completely enamored with Andrew Mangiapane, to be honest with you. I don't think that, I know the fans have been like, wow, Andrew has been great. I think Daryl's expected more consistency from him this year, and I don't know if he got it. We usually see Backlund as that matchup, as that guy that, he can change a game around. That line concerns me a little bit. I think the Yarncroc Dubé Coleman line, I don't have a lot of worry from them because I think they're going to be a major X factor in this series. We'll touch on that in a second. But that Backlund, Mangiapane, Toffoli line, I do think they need to be generally better than they've been down the stretch.
And I think that your concern for Mangiapane is very valid. He hasn't been consistent, but to Dan's point earlier is that you could definitely see some, and to quote Heidi, some line jiggles. And you could see that Dubé go up in the lineup if he's playing as well as he has, and then put Mangiapane back down there onto that third line. And that's still a good defensive line with Coleman, Yarncroke, and Mangiapane. But that might let a fire under Mangiapane's ass to get his shit together, because you got to make sure that backline line is rolling as well, or is playing as well as they can. And with Toffoli, I don't think he's 100% either. So as long as that line is in the positives for their plus minus, that's all that matters to me.
Kevin, when you're saying that Mangiapane's not as consistent, I would agree with you on the offense, but I would say that his game has still been very persistent or consistent. You're not seeing him costing the Flames, I don't think, a lot when he's on the ice. Like, he's not scoring, but I'd say as a sum of that three-man unit, and, Toffoli's been struggling. He hasn't been the star of that unit, but I think he's been just fine with those two guys. And I think even if he's not scoring, he can be a good positive forward on that line to move the puck around, to get the puck to Toffoli, to affect the team positively, even if it's not in the score sheet. But I agree with what Devin said. I mean, you could change that line up. And Devin, you mentioned putting Dubé up there. I would, if I was the coach, even try Coleman up there.
Go Backlund, Coleman, Toffoli, or Backlund, Coleman, Mangiapane?
I'd go Backlund, Toffoli, Coleman, because I think then you've got a great two-way center, and you got two guys that if Backlund can cycle that puck up to them, you got two options there on the net. I think you're going to have a better two-way line there with some more offensive firepower.
Yeah, with Mangiapane, I think he got off to such a red-hot start that the expectations got a little sky high for him. And he had that dip in the middle of the season, but he's been starting to build back up. I don't think I would be as concerned with Mangiapane as maybe you are there, Kev. I think it's where he's at. I think is fine. I think it's in terms of also scores are also very streaky. Unless you're an absolute elite scorer, you're streaky. Like, you're going to score 3-4 goals in like 2 games and then nothing for a couple, or 8-9 goals in 10 games and then nothing, and then like 2 in the next 10 game stretch. That's just the way scoring in the NHL works for those average or slightly above average scorers.
Yeah, well said, Sean. I think that Mangiapane looked good early, and maybe the bar for him got set a little bit high. And I think especially with the first line, I think maybe a lot of people are looking for him to do more. To me, Mangiapane's looked like what I expect him to be, a middle six guy who's a role player on a team, but I don't think Mangiapane, especially on this lineup's ever going to be that elite scorer for the Flames.
Leaves a very interesting question in the offseason, what to do with him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a scenario where he doesn't come back, and I think Mangiapane knows as well as the Flames do what he is, and I think you'll see him re-signed because he's a useful piece here.
I think it might come down to Mangiapane or Dubé in the offseason, depending on what happens with the top 2 guys and how much it takes to bring them back. Like, if you get them both locked in long term, like that's gonna be 20 million plus there, likely 20. I wonder if it's close to 25 million between those two going in, and then you're really trying to figure out what works. Devin and I have gotten to a few arguments about what could happen with Dubé in the offseason. But Devin did bring up a good point last time we got into it about whether or not it might come down to one of those two, because you're starting to see some development from Dubé at the end of this season. Could he be what Mangiapane's been for this roster this year for next year's roster type deal? So, but both those players going into these playoffs have to be at the top of their game, because it's, especially in the playoffs, it is a 4-line game. You need to have that depth down the roster. You need to have players step up on your second, third, and fourth lines when needed. So having a Mangiapane on the second line, a Dubé on the third line that can step up the way they have been in the last little bit here, I think is advantageous for the Flames. And again, as Devin talked about earlier on in the podcast, and a lot of the time over this year, that third line that Devin really likes is very key to the Flames' success.
I think that's the most praise I've ever gotten from you, Sean. Thank you. Jesus.
It only took 2 years.
Yeah, that's it. No, it only took 31 years.
I was about to say, it's a lot longer.
Yeah. That's good advice. It's time to marinate.
I'm making sure Devin feels a lot better before both the Flames and Leafs lose in the first round.
Hey, in my bracket, they're going all the way, and they're meeting each other in the finals. So,
by the way, just for interest's sake, in terms of offense, Mangiapane had 18 goals in the first 3 months of the year, and he had 17 in the last 4 months. And kind of December, January sort of split, and I think it's an equal amount in the sense of like December we had the COVID stoppage there, and then January we had the All-Star break, so there was a little bit of a break there.
Yeah, in the Mangiapane split between pre and post All-Star break, he had 20 goals and 27 points in 42 games pre All-Star break, and then he had 15 goals and 28 points in 40 games post All-Star break. So like I said, I think it's just the way how hot of a start he had, and then he kind of fell off in December and January. He really struggled. Because in December and January he had 4 goals in 18 games, as opposed to the 15 and 22 in October and November, and then he got 8 in 11 in February.
Myself, the one thing I would also say, just in defense of Mangiapane, as I don't pick a table again, is recovering from COVID. I think probably it had more of an impact than we realized on him. Probably there too, and probably took a lot of the Flames a bit. And looking back on that adversity argument, I would argue dealing with COVID and having the entire team going through that stretch of COVID is a form of adversity. It wasn't game adversity. It wasn't typical traditional hockey adversity. But handling that situation, I think that I would count that as adversity. To go back to the whole we haven't seen adversity argument, I would argue that is.
Individual adversity for sure. And everybody recovers different from COVID. So who knows exactly how he felt during that time.
From what I understand is there's maybe 1 or 2 that kind of got something. I think almost all of them were asymptomatic, and they were more frustrated more than anything else. And then we had that whole shutdown with the whole league anyways. So
Sean, and while not all the players got the COVID, I know a lot of the families did. And again, there's some adversity away from the rink there, dealing with, dad's usually at the rink. Maybe now dad has to take on some extra role at home. And, I think that there's some parts that we didn't see just because, the players didn't get it, didn't mean that the team got through scot-free. I know a lot of the better halves got COVID. Some of the kids got COVID. And I think there's a lot of adversity, to Kevin's point, that maybe we didn't see there.
Yeah. But is that adversity that's going to help them within the playoffs? I think that would be my argument, and I can see both sides. But it's more like it is taking, like, having that going to help you.
But I think that affects some of the hockey too. Hey, I've been dealing with the family. I'm tired. I mean, we saw some of the players there said that they weren't at their best because they've been dealing with sick kids and that sort of thing. So while I agree about the hockey, I think it's just that. Everything affects the on ice.
Oh yeah, I understand, and I agree to a certain point. I just I have that, like, when I was talking about adversity, it was more on ice and within that aspect, as opposed to a lot of the teams went through that as well, though, right? Even
on the on ice adversity part, I think if we look at the beginning of the season, the Flames did not make the playoffs last year, and I think that one of the pieces of adversity they've overcome is expectations. I mean, this team did not make the playoffs. Darryl came in. A lot of these guys, there's a lot of talk about what's Darryl going to do here, and I think they've really overcome some of the adversity of just what is this team. And I think that there's been a lot of naysayers about the Flames in the past couple of years, that they look good, that maybe they're not performing. I know I was even said in the past, maybe it's time to move Johnny and, move on from this. And I think that there's been some adversity just plaguing this team for the last couple of years they've overcome as well. Is Daryl still an NHL coach was a lot of the question that came up when he came in. So I think there's a bigger overall storyline of just underachievement that they've overcome.
Even individually, and sorry to bring this up again from Wednesday, but let's look at, I'll bring up 3 players specifically, and 2 of them we talked about last week. Eric Branson, who his career was, let's be honest, his career was tethering, and Daryl went out and got him. A lot of people were scratching their head about that signing, but he turned his game around. Milan Lucic was thinking about retiring, and Oliver Shillington. Oliver Shillington was a guy that a lot of people thought his career was done in Calgary. There was an expectation he wouldn't be back, and now he's the number 4 defenseman. So even I would take that as adversity that counts, right? Now, you can look at every other team and probably make some very similar arguments, but there has been, we just haven't seen, we haven't seen a coaching change like in Edmonton with Dave Tippett and Jay Woodcroft, right? So we haven't seen Drew Doughty out for the rest of the year, and we haven't seen injuries per se, but there has been adversity.
For all 3 of those players, Kev, is that they're a massive part of this team. And you have some feel-good stories around the NHL as far as players kind of coming back to or playing above what their expectations were. But all 3 of those players are huge parts of this team. Even Eric Branson on the 3rd pairing, he's a huge part. And that I think having that confidence and knowing that you're a big part of what's going on your team on and off the ice, that has a massive effect that bleeds through to the rest of the roster and obviously in their own game.
I think the Flames have a roster of guys who are hungry. I mean, when they just brought in random guys like Levo, and it's just, well, you're an NHL body that's cheap. I don't know that there was that same drive and passion, but I think the Flames knew what they wanted. I don't know about you guys, but it feels like for the first time they built a roster where every player plays a role, not just these are some bodies. We'll figure out how to use them later. And I think going to the good Branson and even the Shillington, there was a lot of, we're bringing you in and we're giving you a chance, but those guys showed they're hungry. And I think the playoffs are going to be part of that too, that I'm hungry to prove who I am and why I should either be here or get another contract somewhere else next year. And that I've got something to prove and I need to show that off.
Which leads me to my second small concern. The Flames, I believe, only, and this was a stat from Cassie Campbell, I believe they only have 4 power play goals from defensemen this year. And I know that this isn't a team that is known for offense from defense, but considering another guy that got off to such an incredible start was Oliver Shillington, and I think he's kind of regressed to his top end meme now. And I think Anderson and Hanifin Tanev have been outstanding. Please don't get me wrong. But I was specifically thinking about this for the matchup against Nashville when you're facing a Roman Josi who's 90 points. I think you need offense from everywhere, and I do think they need a touch more offense from defense. Not a lot, but a bit more.
Well, we may only have 4 goals, and I don't have the stats in front of me. How many points do we have from defensemen on the power play? Because I think a lot of times goals from defensemen get inflated. Yes, it's great, and you need that, but if the defenseman putting it towards the net and somebody's tipping it in, to me, that's great defensive production there. And I don't think you necessarily need all your guys ripping it from the blue line and scoring. When you have those guys like Josi, it's great to have, but there's usually a defensive hole in their game. And to me, I'd rather have a more complete set of defensemen that are moving the puck up instead of one guy like a Dougie Hamilton, who we saw here. Great shot from the point, but wasn't the best defensively.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Dan. I think the goals from defensemen is something that gets overrated because you can contribute offensively. Yeah, you can contribute offensively by getting assists or just putting pucks on net and getting and creating goals that way, even if you don't get an assist. That being Rasmus Anderson has 19 power play points this year, tied with Elias Lindholm. So I think there is there, and Shillington never really got power play opportunities on this team. He was tasked as being a good top 4 puck mover on 5-on-5, and that was it. That Daryl didn't want to wanted to get him comfortable in the role first before handing him more responsibilities, which I think is a smart move. And he started off really good, but petered out a little bit, was still very solid throughout the season. And I think you may see him get a little more opportunity next year, but I think then you've got Noah Hannafin with 13 power play points this year, which has more than Mangiapane and tied with Sean Monahan. So I look at that and I think the offense. I've always been someone who said that the Flames should have been looking to add another offensive defenseman, and then it would be something that would be nice for them if they're in this playoff run. But I think they've done well with what they've had. What this blue line reminds me of is if you take Ehrhoff away from the 2011 Canucks, they had Salo, Hamhuis, Bieksa, who all weren't necessarily big offensive production defensemen, but they got the job done with what the roles they were put in.
When you look at how similar Hannafin and Anderson are, they've been tandem there for that first power play unit. That whoever is not on that first power play unit is on the second power play unit, and I think Sutter is rewarding the play of the better player for that game to jump on that unit, and the fact that they are so similar, I think, is super beneficial if one is having an off night than the other one, in comparison to having a solid number one Dougie Hamilton type, and if he's off his game, then you're kind of losing your balance within that because you don't have anybody else to really step in. But since they are so similar, I think it's very, very, it's a good problem to have, having both of them as a kind of a 1B power play player.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong.
They have Flames have 5 power play goals from defensemen, and the Stars have 8.
Yeah, so that's not much different. Okay, fair. It was a small concern. It wasn't like I was lighting the room like I'm in panic of this.
Everything's fine.
I think it's very on trend to discuss defensive goals, but I think again when we look at the totality of the team, if the defensemen are one thing I've had a problem with Calgary defensemen in the past is letting the puck come out of the opponent's blue line. Everyone's got to come out and chase it and go back. Calgary's doing a much better job of keeping that puck in the offensive zone this year, moving around and getting it to the forwards. And to me, that's a defenseman's job is when you're in the offensive zone, keep the puck in the blue line, move it up, and let the forwards go for that goal. And if they can put it on net, great. But I think that, the offensive production should be coming from the offensive players.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. And credit Ryan Huska for that too, right? Ryan Huska handles the defense, and there seems to be more of a rhythm on the team from that point. We don't talk a lot about the assistants, but I think one of the significant changes that happened here was bringing in Kirk Muller, keeping Ryan Huska, bringing in Cale McLean, and moving Martin Tangellina upstairs. I think not that I'm not trying to degrade Martin Tangellina, but it seems like a stronger assistant staff this year as well.
I agree. I mean, and I think again that comes to an NHL coach coming in and saying, "This is what I need." And I think a lot of these other coaches they've had were just happy to have the job. I mean, if you're Glenn Gulletson, I don't think you can start ordering who you want on your coaching staff. So I think it's, we're investing in a guy. Let's let him invest in his people, and let's build this the right way.
Yeah. I'm just trying to picture Craig Conroy trying to get Daryl Sutter to climb the Grouse Mountain for an interview. Can we have that film? That'd be fun.
I think instead it might be Daryl trying to get Conroy to shovel some manure on the farm while they're doing the interview.
I think it's probably more likely. Yes. And by the way, can we have more Milan Lucic suits during the playoffs?
Yes. I'm sure he's stocked up on power suits.
And Kevin, it's interesting you mentioned that. I mean, that's become sort of the meme lately, and often the teams like to jump on something during the playoffs. I would not be surprised if we see the entire team going for power suits for games 1 and 2, sort of making that a team bonding experience. And, let's all go for the Milan suit and the cowboy hat and that sort of thing.
Yeah. That would have been fun against Nashville, but Dallas stole some cowboy.
Texas, man. Texas. Cowboys down to Texas.
Yeah. So I guess let's start with this series and then we'll go with expectation. How long do you think this series goes?
I have Flames winning in 5.
We asked this question of our audience on Twitter, and a lot of people are saying 4. I think you're underestimating Dallas. I think this is going to be a 6-game series.
That's where I'm at. I think Dallas does squeak out a couple wins. I think it's a 6-game Flames win.
Yeah, I think that this is a 6-game series too. I don't think any of the Western Conference series are going to be shorter, except maybe Colorado, Nashville. But I think the other 3 are going to be lengthy series that we'll be seeing for a while. I have a 6-game series, and I guess in terms of expectations, maybe this is. I'll do this as finish this sentence. It is a successful playoff run if the Flames get to at least the
third round.
Yeah, I would say that because you're likely playing the Oilers in the second round. If you lose to them, that's not a successful playoff run.
And even if it goes the other way, Sean, Daryl's not going to be too happy if they lose to the Kings.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, third round.
But I think if you look at the assets this team has given up this year, I mean, they've got, 2 picks, like 4 and 6. Tree might as well just trade those away and not have to go to Montreal at all. Like, I think if this team's out in round 1 and you look at the assets they've given up and the free agents they've got, I don't think it's going to be easy to say, yes, this was a successful run. They're built to go deep. They've given up the assets to go deep. They've got to go deep.
And I guess it also depends on how they go out.
Yeah.
I still think even if you lose in the second round in 7 games, as we said, Dan with the Sutter's LA connection, and if it's not LA, it's going to be Edmonton. It's still going to be a bitter pill to swallow, and I don't think that's going to be enough.
And I think, on that, Sean, if we look at this team's gone out in the second round before in the last, 10 years, let's call it. This team is really, they're built to go deep. And I think that there's going to be expectation that they go past that round. And if not, I think it'd still be disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
So we answered Sage OT Waters. Thanks for your comment. Is this matchup still going to be a good series, or will just end up fairly one-sided? I think the majority of us think a good series.
Yeah, I picture Calgary winning the first 2. They'll lose the third, and then they'll win the last game in Dallas, and then they'll win at home here in Calgary in Game 5.
And Devin, it's interesting you're mentioning winning at home. We've heard Daryl talk a lot about the Saddle Dome and what the Dome crowd means to this team. And I think that there's a lot of work being done right now behind the scenes of, we've got the Sea of Red behind us. They're expecting to win. We need them. And I think that the home crowd is going to play more factor in the Flames game in those first 2 than a lot of people give it credit for.
100%.
Yeah, there's going to be 2 underlying stories here in the playoffs that and the first is crowds, because especially in Canada, there weren't crowds last time. Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto, and even, some of the other places, like you look at LA, they haven't had a playoff game in a while. St. Louis, Minnesota, that's going to be rocking. Colorado's going to rock. Nashville's going to rock.
And I think rocking is a different definition in some of those markets too. I think a rocking St. Louis crowd is very different than a rocking Calgary crowd.
Well, they're just going to bring in Brett Hull, and he's going to drink, and everything will be fine.
Well, wasn't it 04 when Tampa Bay brought in Hulk Hogan to pretty much stand on the ice and do this one to get their crowd going?
Yeah. That was hard. Yeah. And the other theme, and maybe this will be an interesting transition to the Tampa Bay Toronto series, Devin, is goaltending. And we always know that this is a big thing, but we've got almost a split of teams that are going to use one. Like we've got the Rangers with Shesterkin, Calgary with Markstrom, Tampa with Vasilevsky, Colorado with Kemper, Nashville would have with Soros.
Edmonton with Smith.
I think they're going to use both.
No, they're going to run Smith until his legs fall off.
I think they're going to have to use both because I think Smith is going to not make it through, and they're going to have to put Koskinen in.
Yeah. So maybe I'm saying the same thing.
I think they're going to use two, but not deliberately. They're not going in saying we want to use both. They're going to be forced into using both. And the question is then Stuart Skinner or Koskinen?
You know what my heart wants, and this is only for our good friend Graham Mosiman, bring back Ilya Bryzgalov.
While you may want that, Kevin, any deal signed now is ineligible for playoff hockey. So.
And that thing too, Kev. I think it's every team's going to use one goalie until the one goalie decides that the one goalie fails them. Right? It's not a tandem. It's just going to be they're going to go with the hot hand until that hot hand's done. Then. I think
Minnesota's going to split Fleury and Talbot in the first two games, and I think St. Louis might too. I think St. Louis might go Hisso game 1, Binnington game 2.
Yeah, but if either of those goalies go hot and stand on their head, why would you go away from them?
You don't, but I don't think that I'm confident enough that these goalies are going to be hot. That's the thing, and you look at some of these matches, like in Toronto, for example. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do there. I think it's either Campbell or Shalgren, or
it's Campbell until his legs fall off.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think any team is going in thinking we're going to be splitting the time. I think, like Sean said, you grab one goalie, you ride him till he's done. But I think there's more teams that we know at some point the goalie's going to fail them. I can't remember last time we saw a team that was, say, playing, one goalie at home, one on the road, or every other. Like, I think every team goes in with one goalie in mind.
Mm-hmm. Like you're gonna have Bobrovsky in Florida. You're gonna have, he says, Shesterkin with the Rangers, Anderson with Carolina, Swayman in Boston.
Is Anderson healthy?
I don't think Anderson's healthy.
No. Who's in?
Ranta.
Is Ranta healthy? I thought I saw him go.
No,
down.
He's fine. He's
okay.
Yeah.
Washington, it's Vanacek. He said Smith's played so well of late that I don't see them going in with any idea other than just play the old man until.
And he may not want to leave. He may, Woodcroft might say, "Yeah, we're going to go with Koskinen," and Smith's going to go, "Fuck you, I'm staying."
Sean, if they run Smith until he falls apart, is that elder abuse?
Sorry, Kev. The only one that I think you're right on in terms of whether or not what they want to do is Minnesota. That's the only one I would even question. But I think St. Louis, I think whoever they start in game 1 is who they're going to go with going forwards, unless they shit the bed.
I could see Woodcroft in Edmonton go Koskinen first just to piss Smith off, and I think that's exactly how you do it. You piss him off, and then he goes on a massive streak.
He does play better when he has some adversity in front of him.
Yes. Yeah. But I would think for St. Louis, I think they go Husso.
Yeah, I do too. Kind of. Yeah. Maybe we'll start big picture here. What is the biggest chance of an upset, or what we would consider an upset?
Oh,
I think I'll give you a crazy one. I think that Nashville could come out and beat Colorado.
No, if they had Saros, yes, I'd agree with that, but not without Saros.
I don't know how long Saros is going to be out though.
Everything I've heard is not good.
Yeah.
Boston over Carolina.
Yeah,
I don't trust Boston's goaltending.
No, I don't think Swayman's an NHL goaltender yet. I wonder if Boston now goes, crap, we made the wrong decision in getting rid of Vladar.
Oh, I think Swayman's been pretty solid. 922 save percentage.
I think Swayman's
204
got a
goals
good
against
defense in
average.
front of him that's really helped him, but I don't know that he's a guy that a lot of teams would look at and say, yeah, that's the goalie for us. We've seen that a lot, where a mediocre goalie looks great in front of a good or behind a good defense.
He's really young too, like for a goalie
He
too.
is.
Like it's
My upset would be LA over Edmonton.
Is that really an upset?
I think so. With these expectations going in, I think that LA isn't getting enough credit for what they have. They have Mikey Anderson back on defense. It's just whether or not that's. I think that is the question in LA is how good is that defense going to be able to shut down Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. But
to me, that's the one series I can see going either way.
So you say they're pretty even, eh?
I think either team could beat either other team on a given night, and I think it's just going to be which team gets more wins than the other. I think they both have strengths and weaknesses. But yeah, I mean, we talked about Edmonton's goaltending problems. LA's got its own issues. I think it's just who can kind of maximize their chances better.
how healthy is Darnell Nurse? That's a huge question for Edmonton. And can't wait for Oilers fans to be crying about Philip Deneau.
I think LA has the ability to neutralize the really one scoring line of Edmonton and take over that series.
They have the second best. They might have the best defenseman in the series too, if Darnell Nurse isn't healthy, and it's Sean Durzi.
Even if Darnell Nurse is healthy, I still think they have the best defenseman. But
I think both of Dev. Who's yours? Because I can understand your concerns about Boston's goaltending, but like Carolina doesn't have Anderson, so I look at that and then I wonder if they can, and they've got the best defensive forward in this era in Patrice Bergeron. So,
sorry, you're asking me about that the series with Boston and Carolina?
No, who's your upset?
I LA.
Yeah,
I'd say that I think Edmonton has a lot more firepower than LA, and I think that's a lot of people picking Edmonton over LA. And if we're looking at it, I think that team rallies around their captain for being his last run, Dustin Brown. And Jonathan Quick, I think he'll be the number one that they start with and roll him in until they absolutely need. It's very similar to St. Louis with Husso and Binnington. And if you see a bit of a falter, or if what's the head coach's name in LA?
And that's another underlying storyline there that nobody's talking about is Todd McLellan is facing the Edmonton Oilers after that debacle that happened there.
Yeah, if McLellan, if he thinks that his team needs a switch up in goal, I know he'll do it.
Well, yeah, because you have Peterson there that can step in, and he's shown that he can be a play at a top level. I love the depth of LA's forwards. It just comes down to, can that blue line play up? Because it's young. It's very young. So, and not having Drew Doughty there. Man, if Drew Doughty was there, that would be an absolutely just ridiculous series. Like, so much fun.
We've seen Edler do well in the playoffs. I think that, I think Oli Mata has looked good in some playoff series. Like they've got a better, I think, 6 defensemen than Edmonton does.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree with that. Mike, like I said, Mikey Anderson, Sean Durzi, very young. Jordan Spence is very young as well. But you do have, as much as experience as Troy Stetcher can bring. But yeah, overall, I agree with you.
I think whoever gets out of that series, Edmonton or LA, is done in round 2. But I think for two younger, especially a young LA team, it's going to be a good playoff experience for those young guys if they can make it out. But I think that both those teams have a 2-round maximum.
Toronto is hosting Tampa Bay. If Toronto beats Tampa Bay, would that be considered an upset?
No. They're the higher seed.
Oh, fuck you.
They're the higher seed.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Evan, I would say
okay,
it would be.
Daryl. Okay, Daryl.
You kidding me? You're telling me that the two-time Stanley Cup champs are the underdog? That is bullshit.
The lower seed.
That is ridiculous.
They're the lower seed.
That's
Tampa
ridiculous.
Tampa's the favorite. Come on, Sean.
They're the lower seed.
Oh,
I
And
think
it's
that
a
would be
2-3. It's a pick'em series.
I think that would be an
anyway.
upset, but I don't think it's going to happen.
It's a pick'em series.
well, that's not an upset then.
Exactly.
But you just said it was.
No, I said no. Well, no, I didn't. I did. If you said no, the said is if Toronto beats Tampa, is that an upset? I said no, because it's a pick'em series.
All right. Okay. Because you were just saying that it was, but okay.
No, that's not. Listen, Tevin, please.
I did.
No,
Am I wrong, Kevin and Dan?
This is where I get my popcorn. Dan, this is where you pick up popcorn.
I was going to say, I think this is where we need to go for snacks. Devin's asking if he's right or not. Do we have a replay coach that we can play back the last 2 minutes and see?
Absolutely.
Let me make a call to Toronto here. Hold on.
Oh, they're biased. You can't do that. But legitimate. What I'm saying is, it's a pick'em series. So either way, it's not an upset for me. If Tampa wins, it's not an upset. If Toronto wins, it's not an upset. It's a pick'em series.
Toronto's the underdog. They definitely are.
I agree.
I
think if
Daryl.
Toronto
you guys have been drinking Daryl's Kool-Aid. Daryl's going to say that they're the underdogs against Dallas. Come on.
I have yet to hear this from Daryl, Sean, but I will ask the question if I'm at the media availability just for you.
Please.
Yes.
Please.
Some bearded Canucks fan wants to know if you feel like you're an underdog, and he'll probably give me the stare and tell me to leave.
Yeah. Won't even answer. Next question.
I love how Daryl answers questions. I think Tampa is the favorite. I think Toronto's the underdog, and it's all on the fact that they're a two-time Stanley Cup champion, and Toronto hasn't had the success for us to say that they have a chance.
I think without those two titles, it could be a pick'em series. But in the fact that one team comes in as two-time champion, I think that puts them above the other guys.
But it's like a razor edge based off of how good Toronto's played this year.
I love your optimism. I love it.
You're more optimistic than the Leafs fan.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying it's a pick'em series. That's what it is. I wouldn't call either of them a favorite.
Let's go down the list. Vasilevsky or Campbell?
Oh, Vasilevsky.
Toronto's defense or Tampa Bay's defense?
Tampa's.
That's what we're doing. We're picking Tampa Bay.
I'd say it's a soft. I think they've done a good job in Toronto for pairings and depth. If Muzzin's healthy, I think it's a pick'em or it's a soft.
Okay, and then going top end talent, top two lines on each. Who gets it?
Toronto.
It depends on the health of Bunting.
That's a good point.
I think if we're looking at just offensive talent potential, I'd go Toronto, but based on proven results, I'd go with Tampa Bay.
My thing is because I'm with you. I think that's a pick'em, that's a saw-off for the top talent. But when you really look at the defense, I think Toronto has less of an edge than Tampa Bay does, just because you have Hedman, you have Jan Ruda, you have McDonough, Sergachev, Cernak, and Cal Foote. That's a hell of a lineup. And I'm not saying that Toronto can't rise to the challenge with having Riley, Labushkin, Muzzin, Brody, Liljegren, and Giordano. That's still a very, very good six defensemen you can roll out there, essentially. But I just think that the experience that defense has in playoffs, that means more than anything. And especially the goaltenders. God, Vasilevsky at 50% is better than Jack Campbell at 80%.
And it's going to depend on Matthew. You know, we talked about Johnny and Matthew. Matthews and Marner have got to step up, especially Marner. I think this is a huge playoff for Mitch Marner, who that Leaf fan base and that Leaf media group has not been kind to him in the playoffs. He's got to step up. He's going to be hugely important in that series.
Yep. That's gonna be the hinging point. You have an aging John Tavares. He'll do everything that he can in his power to push them past, but it is ultimately down to Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews.
And again, I'm just going to say this now because I'm going to start this now. Braden Point's a top 10 player in the league. This is the time that he proves it. Here's why
he's
I'm not
got,
Toronto.
Like, Pirelli and Hagel on his wings. That's the second line, which is why I would, as much as I like Cirelli and Hagel, the Leafs second line of Tavares and based around Tavares and Nylander, I think is better.
I think that this is the one series that's going to have the most intrigue across the league. I think that this is the one that has the most underlying storylines we're starting to talk about. And I think this is the one that's going to be, because of that, also because it's two Eastern teams, really the media darling of the first round.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you've got the center of the hockey universe in Toronto versus the two-time Stanley Cup champs.
Yep.
And just to clarify, right now I'm on Daily Faceoff looking at the lineup. Their second line is Paul, Point, and Colton. And that was updated today. So I like that second line better than the other second line, just because of the versatility. Nothing against Tavares, Nylander, and Kerfoot, but I'd say that they're an overall better line that can play defense and have the offensive punch that you need in the playoffs over Toronto's second line.
Meanwhile, I'm on left wing lock, and that's where I got that second line of Hagel, Point, and Cirelli.
When was that updated, though?
Today.
All right. Well, either way,
as soon as you said it, Deb, I was like, when was this updated? Team practice, May 1st. I'm like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Thanks,
yes.
Frank Saravelli.
I don't think Saravelli does
Colton,
the
and
daily.
Paul. Would be the third line. So,
okay, here's mine. Watch out for. I think Washington is going to give Florida a run.
Is Ovi healthy?
He will be.
He will make himself healthy. He will put all the drugs and numbing shit in his system to figure this out, and he will do the best and damnedest that he can to push them across the finish line here. But I don't think it's enough.
No, I don't either. I think if you look at the additions Florida's this year, I think they're a team to be reckoned with in the East, and I think Washington will give them a run, but I think Florida's going to be triumphant.
Okay.
Yeah, I talk about a team that I'm not sold on their goaltending. That's Washington.
They weren't even sold on their goaltending, to be fair.
Yeah.
But I'm not sold on Florida's goaltending either. That's the problem. I'm not sold on Bobrovsky, although he's still makes for a wonderful meme.
I think he's proven this year that he can do it as far as the regular season goes. And yes, you have Spencer Knight as his backup, and both of them have played decently well or good enough. But if you go in a run and gun series with Washington, which is exactly what they're going to try and do, is outscore Washington. I think Florida wins that more so than not. And as long as they stay out of the penalty box, that is a big thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of Bobrovsky's issues and numbers are from the style of play that Florida plays, more than anything else. But I take Bobrovsky over Vanacek.
Yeah. The other series though that I think is going to be, like Dan was talking about, must-watch hockey: Rangers versus Penguins. That series is going to be a fucking war. I cannot wait to watch that one.
Rangers Penguins is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Minnesota St. Louis is going to be a war. Washington Florida is going to be a track meet. That's just going to be fun, and Florida is a mean team too. They are a mean, dirty team.
Yep. Yeah. That's well, yeah, and you got Lundell and Tom Wilson and all of that for sure.
Oh, the one thing I forgot about for the Toronto Tampa series is Corey fucking Perry.
Mm-hmm.
Almost 20 goals this year. And him and Simmons are going to go off on each other. And it's going to be that's just the
we have Leah
mission
Hextall
right
between
there.
the benches. Just put her between the benches for the whole series.
Wayne, are you soft?
They're be mucking the shit out, and God, all of this is going to be great to watch. Like the best round is always the first round. There's always one or two games a night that you're like, this is must watch hockey, and then you say to your significant other, "I'm sorry, I'll see you in 2 months."
That's why I'm glad I have mine is big into it as well. She's like, all right, we're gonna have a games night, but we're gonna still have the hockey on. Perfect. Plus, she knows that keeps me distracted and gives her a better chance at winning. Smart.
I just stay single. That's just my solution. I'm year-round single, so I don't have to. Sorry, significant other. I don't have you. Go ahead. No. By the way, Tampa's lines, according to Chris Krenn, Stamkos, Palat, Kucherov, Colton, Paul, Killorn, Cirelli, Hagel, Point, Belmar, Maroon, Perry.
Everything is haywire then. That's completely opposite of what Sean and I both said. But it just shows the versatility that they do have within that middle six or top nine. You basically plug and play whoever you want on any line.
Yeah. As far as Nashville, Colorado, I just wanted to get back to that. We've seen David Rittich steal games. I don't think he can steal 4. But I do agree with Dan that they can give. I think that this is, for listening to Colorado podcasts, they have the parade already planned out. Like they are going. I think they're going to invite Russell Wilson there to be the MC at the parade. They've already planned it. They have, and I have not been impressed with Colorado down the stretch. You talk about a team that kind of took their foot off the gas pedal. Colorado did. I think if Nashville can win that first game, I think at very least they will give Colorado some very tough questions to ask.
Yeah, Riddick, I'm not sold on him. I can think he can steal maybe one game if he's playing at his absolute best. Other than that, the firepower for Colorado on that top end is damn scary. And if Nashville does have any chance whatsoever, Duchesne and Johansson need to be the best on the ice at all times, along with Roman Josi.
Yeah, I know it's easy to say that they maybe took their foot off the gas there, but it's just if Nashville had Saros, I'd be there, but Riddick he's proven he's an okay backup, but that's about it. He doesn't have, at least at this point, he doesn't have the mental game to not to take it to that next level.
Dan?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin, you said that Riddick has stolen games, and that was true in Calgary. I can't think of one he's stolen since, taking on his new role as that certified backup in Nashville. But I still think the Predators could come out in game 1 and maybe the Avalanche are, sort of underestimating them, very similar to what we saw Calgary, Colorado a few years ago. But I think it's, if there's going to be an upset, I think that's the one. I don't think it's going to happen, but I could see that one being the one where the Predators surprise in spite of Saros. And I also wonder, could this team try to tape up and, Botox or Novocaine or whatever they need to Saros' ankle to try and get them through this playoff? I don't know.
Massive splint.
Yeah, I mean, and it's honestly not the first time we would have seen it, right? Guys that are out and come back early because they're trying to win it for the playoffs, especially Saros, might see his team's down by 2, tell the coach, yeah, I'm ready, and it causes long-term damage.
Mm-hmm.
A number of years ago, Ottawa asked Dominic Hasek to do it, and he said no. He said, I can't. I won't do it. So it's interesting. That's an interesting question. Anything else in the playoffs we need to chat about here? Or?
Do we know what page? Do we know what page of the rule book will be called?
Page 1 in the first period, page 2 in the second, page 3 in the third, and page 4 in overtime.
Considering that the first 4 pages are, if we get past the index talking about the playing surface, those 4 pages will be in effect. I don't think we get to penalties until about page 80. So,
yeah. A couple of quick things here. I wanted to just give a congratulations to Dennis Bayak. Dennis Bayak is calling his final game as the Winnipeg Jets play-by-play guy. He has been the play-by-play there for years. We have one more game. We have the Seattle Kraken taking on the Winnipeg Jets this afternoon, by the way. It's the Vancouver Canuck Calgary Flame bubble game.
Jets are up 1-0. They're up 1-0 after 1.
Yeah. Oh, and so they're playing now. But right congratulations, now. Dennis Bayak, his final game calling games for the Winnipeg Jets. He's been there forever. So he's moving on. They're going to get a new play-by-play voice in Winnipeg.
Rick Jenneret as well called his last game this past week as well. The Sabres are getting in someone new.
They'll have Dan Dovlevy probably do that full time. But
do people listen to the Sabres broadcasts?
Well, I won't be anymore because Jenneret's gone.
I mean, I thought people had to care about the team to listen to their broadcasts.
Watch Buffalo might be a better team next year. They might be.
Who's stopping pucks?
Yeah, who's their goalie? Yeah.
Kevin, they might be. And Arizona might also fill their 5,000 seat arena. You never know what's going to happen.
It won't. I'm making a bold prediction. We will not have the Arizona Coyotes next year.
I think, Sean, it's too late to make that change right now with everything that's going on. I think you'll see Arizona play at least 2 years in this arena before they move off to Houston.
They haven't even like officially done it, like said that they're going to do it. They're going off of like unofficial stuff. I think something falls apart and they go to Houston, a la Atlanta and Winnipeg so quickly when that happened.
Well, if they are in Arizona, I'm going to go watch them play because seeing that amazing talent, not the Arizona Coyotes, but whoever's playing Arizona, that amazing talent, that close, I think it'd be special.
Your $200 ticket?
Yep. Go see Clayton Keller.
Because Chitrin's.
So I don't know if I've told you guys, but there used to be.
Go for it, Dan.
There used to be a hacking when in Arizona. My dad's friend used to buy season tickets there in the nosebleeds opposite camera side because he knew that they would come down and automatically move him to the first level camera side to make it look full. So this guy bought a $60 ticket and got moved to a $160 ticket every game without fail.
That's a slow clap.
That's.
Oh my God.
That's smart. That's genius.
Yes.
Do we want to touch on Carey Price quickly or save it for tomorrow?
We can save that.
Okay. All right. Well, Dan, thanks for joining us. We're going to have you as we do our recaps for you and Matt will be welcome to join us as we recap all the player games. By the way, shout out to Cameron Turner. Give him credit for coming on and saying, "Let's go Stars. I don't mind being the underdog. Going to shock some people." Hey, I wish you luck.
A salute to your fandom.
Yeah, I'm just happy that Hudobin's not playing so that Kevin doesn't butcher his name 6 different ways like he did 2 years ago.
Hudobin.
I can't remember how you said it a few times. Like it was like Kubodin. I'm like,
Kuhu Dobin.
I'm the Rick
Tom.
Dollywall. I am the Rick Dollywall of this podcast, and it's how I play Fraser. Hey, wait till you see when I call traffic and do the Fraser Valley. It really the Vancouver folk appreciate my pronunciations, just for sure, at the Lougheed Road. No, I'm just kidding. Not that I've done that in a while. But Dan, Woody, and Matt, Matt, the Fireside Chat. Dan, of course, you're Matt, not. But you guys are recording later today.
We are, yes. 7 p.m. today, we're recording our playoff preview. So we're going to have a lot of the same discussions here. We also are going to go back and look at our preseason predictions and see how we did. Matt's usually very optimistic about this team. He thought we were going to win the Stanley Cup 4 of the 10 years we broadcast. So we'll see how that goes, who wins that game. And then we're going to look ahead to the playoffs, and we do our show weekly. So we'll be doing our show this week, and we'll record again next Sunday after, I think, the first 4 games. So it's a great way to sort of get hyper-focused Flame stuff and chat about the Flames and how they're doing. You can find our podcast wherever fine podcasts are found, Spotify, Google Play, Apple, everywhere. You can also find us at firesidechat.ca, and there's a list there to subscribe as well. Feel free to leave us a comment. Follow us on Twitter at Fireside Podcast, Facebook.com/FiresideChat. Let us know what you think. Let us know who you think is going to be rolling for the Flames, or maybe where you think the problems will be. And we'd love to have some interaction with Flames fans and hear what the Sea of Red's thinking. Don't send us your pictures from the Sea of Red or from the Red Mile. I mean, we don't need to see those. Those will be on a different website, but let us know how, what you're excited about.
Are you writing that website on a different website? Are you advertising a different website there?
No, I'm not. But what was it? It was, what was it? redmilegirls.com or something 04. Maybe that one will come back. But... God. Being serious though, I think after COVID, I think that the Red Mile is going to be great for the city. I think that there's going to be a lot of money spent, a lot of people getting out. I think one of the unsung benefits of this is just what it's going to bring back to the downtown core.
Yep, I totally agree. I think in Calgary and in Edmonton, I think this playoff run will be great for both of the cities. And, I don't follow
especially if they play each other.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Dan, I'm telling you, we're bringing Graham on, and you guys are going to just have a fight for the ages.
All right. Does this mean that if they're playing each other, we're going to have the fans meet in neutral ground of Red Deer and, have a red-blue mile there?
Okay. And I'm inviting Jim Matheson. I'm calling you out. You're coming on this podcast, and we're going to argue over Goodrow versus Draisaitl.
All right. Sounds good.
We will debrief and unpack the season that was in Vancouver. I think the media availability is tomorrow, by the way.
It's happening right now, actually.
Oh, is it? Okay. So we'll debrief all that tomorrow.
Enjoy that.
Yeah. It's been the same, just to spoil it, it's been the same thing for 4 months. It's just the end of the year, right? But so we'll do that. We'll have Tyler on, and we'll probably get Tyler's view of what's going to happen in the officiating in the playoffs. He always has a good perspective as an official. Chris will be
He'll
on.
Tell us what page.
Yeah, exactly. So how do we follow everyone else?
I am BeardyConnect03 on Twitter.
Follow me on Twitter at GordHowe09.
Tyler, TNOBLE, Chris Schneid's, SCHNAIDZ. I am KEVOLE, Shifts and Pucks, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. Subscribe wherever you get your audio, as well as on the Area 51 Sports Network. Thanks, everyone, for watching and listening, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.